more, can you help us figure out why they're not, or?
Too good to say.
Well, I'm saying that
No,
they are.
too much stuff. Oh, yeah.
No, and that's.
But they are.
Yeah, I would be more.
And I'm not that
saying,
you
have to.
just
Help us figure
Well, I
it
mean, I
out.
talked to Jeff, he says, look, I sent him, $100.
Yeah.
Well, I read it. Tim Gillen does spit by there.
We're not gonna do anything. I can mess
I think she's
I
my
don't think you can get any record.
She did everything up there.
I don't think the code section allows for specific uses for
In case you didn't know that, you don't have to drive behind me and
Oh, that intimidation tactic.
I've never heard of that.
Well, yeah, he knew he was trying to intimidate me into doing that stuff. But
Well, I didn't get Chris. I'll call the Smyth County Board of Supervisors regular monthly meeting to order. And we'll start this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Kenneth Pennington from the Building Inspection Office, and remain standing in for the invocation by Kendra Hayden.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for today and the opportunity to gather together and work for your good. I ask that you guide and direct the hearts and minds of our community leaders and protect our citizens. Let us all remember we are meant to be examples of your love and grace, and let our actions show that character. Lord, we also ask for your peace and strength to be with our board member and friend, Roscoe Call, and his family. Please watch over them in their time of need. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Pennington is going to give us a 5-minute speech, I believe, before. Or have you changed your mind?
That wouldn't be me today, Mr. Chairman.
It's good to see everyone here today, and hopefully we'll get some business conducted. We're missing a couple of our board members due to sickness, but we got 5 of us here, so we will proceed onward. First item is the amendment to the agenda. And as far as I know, we have no amendments.
Yes, sir.
Good to go. Okay, moving right along. No public presentations. Nobody wants to tell us anything
Oh,
in public.
do I
We
have
do
to
it.
come up there?
We do it in citizen comment.
Yeah,
Section.
citizen comment will get you. Is that right? We have a public hearing on the VRA bond for Staley Creek Water Project. And I'll open public hearing, and if I'll entertain a motion to, because we're a small group here, I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the rules.
So moved.
Have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of waiving the rules for the meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, likewise. Okay. I'll open the public hearing now.
We don't have anyone who signed up. You want me to read the ad? Or you had it back?
Yeah, go ahead and read it. That way everybody knows what's going on.
Okay. The Smyth County Board of Supervisors will hold a public hearing on the proposed issuance of bonds by Smyth County. The estimated maximum amount of such bonds is $300,360, and the proposed uses of the bond proceeds are to pay for the cost of the financing of the county's Staley Creek Sewer Rehab Project involving the county sewer system, for which more than 10% of the total bond proceeds expect to be used, and to pay for the cost of issuing those bonds. The public hearing will be which may be continued or adjourned, and at which persons may appear and present their views on the proposed issuance, will be held at 5 p.m. or shortly thereafter, as may be heard on September 14th, 2023, before the Board of Supervisors of Smyth County, 121 Bagley Circle, Suite 100, Marion, Virginia. And just to let you know, we have a sewer project going up Route 16 toward Sugar Grove that follows Staley Creek. That line was put in 25 years ago probably, or longer. So there's some of the manholes are leaking, and every time it rains we're paying the town of Marion to treat a lot of sewer. So this will line the manholes, rehab all the manholes. We have a couple small areas where the sewer line will be replaced, guardrail to be removed from the sewer line, little things like that, so we can have hopefully a lower treatment system or treatment costs. Just to remind you, this is about a $500,000 project. We've been awarded about $200,000 in grant funds to go along with the $300,000 in bonds.
And it's my understanding that payback on this is fairly quickly because of the amount of cost will lower our our treatment bill.
We expect the payback to be within 4 years,
That's what I thought I'd read.
especially with the grant funds.
All right, we're in a public hearing. Anyone want to comment on the bond issue? We're looking at a $306,000 some odd dollar issue.
Yeah.
Hearing
Also
none.
something-
Yeah, good.
I mean, the only thing I'd like to say is, it's always best to be out of debt. Pay as you go, like Virginia used to do 50 years ago, or whatever it was. You know, when the government's $37 trillion in debt, I don't know where anybody's really got any real money. But I'd say get out of debt. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Charles Wasson, my son.
I was gonna let that sneak by that time. Any others want to make comments? I appreciate his comment there because I tend to be the same way.
And the good news with the VRA loan, the way it's set up, once we have that return on investment, there's nothing that stops us from paying it off early. In my opinion, my main reason of going just for a $300,000 bond is so we can get a hold of that $200,000 in grant. If we don't do the bond, they won't give us the grant. So at least we're subsidizing a little bit, and then we can pay it off early.
Right. Yeah, because I've been pushing, we got some other bonds I wanted to pay off. And there's no reason to pay them off because we don't save a penny. Anyone else wishing to speak on the bond issue? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Moving on now to our minutes of the previous meeting. We had those in your packet. Everyone, I hope, had a chance to read them, go through them.
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I'll
Likewise.
abstain because I was.
Okay, 4-0-1. Moving on to old business, budget committee. And I'm gonna let you field that, Sean, if you don't mind.
Financial status and invoices.
It's not on my cheat sheet.
Uh-oh.
Let me back up to that page. All right, financial status. Are you Lisa today?
Yeah, I'll try to be anyway. So just turn to page 20 in your packet, and for the next several pages, the good news is we're right in line with where we are last year, minus if you compared this to August of 2022, we're about $3 million lower than we were in 2022, but that's because we just did the $3 million grant to the Planning District Commission for the housing project through the now known as special use funds, the former ARPA funds. Otherwise, we're right in line with where we were last year, so we're not losing ground, we gained a little bit. The only thing that you'll notice that's a little bit low that I'm been trying to work on is that sheriff radar fund. It's down to about 125,000, a little under 125,000. So we're trying to work on that. You'll notice the school safety lights or cameras are up for Chilhowie, Adkins, and Saltville. I think Saltville is a town project, but I think that the warning letters have been going out and tickets will be issued. And yeah, I want to say the 1st of October. So there'll be some revenue. That revenue will go into the 744 fund.
No, it's gonna be the same split as the radar.
Same split, 80-20 split, yeah.
You're gonna make a fortune off of it in Atkins.
You really are.
The first check will come from Mr. Atkins.
Probably. I mean, quite literally, I have a hard time, and I'm usually have somebody right on my bumper if I get down close to 45 through there. And if it's school, the light's flashing, People do not want to slow down.
It almost got rid of.
So it's good that we're making us slow down, and I'm very conscious of it now, but I may very well have the first ticket.
I'll have to laugh.
Turn it over on page 21, there's a summary of the balance for the water sewer, and really all I'd look at is the deposits and expenses for the month. We did have about $25,000 expenses higher than deposits or payments. We had a few repairs and a debt payment. That's a semi-annual debt payment on one of the projects, so that's why it's a little bit higher. Otherwise, you have some collections summaries and the treasurer's accountability report. Be glad to answer any questions if you have any. If I don't know the answer, I can make a good one up.
Anyone have any questions for him? I guess we don't need to move to accept, do we? No. All right, going into the payment of the invoices now, accounts payable. In your packet is a list of checks that we issued. Anybody have any questions, or I'll look for somebody for a motion to approve? Have a second? Motion and a second. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Sounds like it was unanimous. Now we can move into old business.
Citizens time.
Failed you, Charlie, I'm sorry.
She failed you.
Just throw that in the trash.
Only the motion.
That's the one that in motion, she said.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go back to my old cheat sheet. All righty, I was just gonna skip citizens time. Citizens time, which is a time set aside for citizens to provide comment on the board of general items. We like favorable comments, but we will listen to unfavorable. That way we can correct what we need to, so. Has anyone signed up for citizens time?
Bradley Powers was asked for time on this.
Mr. Powers, come forward and state your name and address for the record.
You got it. Bradley Powers, 1245 South Main Street in Marion. Chairman, permission to give this little extra sheet to you all.
Go right ahead.
This one, I didn't get a chance to.
And on the back side of the
It's
red
both.
tab, you have two other attachments.
Yes. I was able to give, Sean was able to make sure some things were good here for us. Thank you, sir. You got it. All right, so we can get this here. If you look at probably the actual ordinance itself, section 4486, which is our annual license tax. If you go probably to page 2 of that, you go to 4489, which is the exemptions where we have for disabled veterans and volunteer fire departments and rescue squad members, where they're exempt from that $25 annual license tax. Here this evening to actually ask you all to consider opening that up for all first responders, EMS, fire, law enforcement, and dispatchers to be included as a first responder, so they all fall under that annual $25 tax exemption for that license fee. And it's a little bit of a wording thing there, because as we know, we have a lot of departments that are now paid EMS, and they include the fire side, and part of them are still volunteers. Just to avoid any issues in the future, it's mainly to say, hey, look, all first responders in the county, whether they be under a municipal department or a county department, a volunteer department, all of those first responders will receive a $25 annual tax exemption on one vehicle. That way, everyone's covered, including our law enforcement officers. Of course, this will allow all first responders serving our great county to be recognized for their service, because often first responders have to work multiple positions, or they have to take extra overtime shifts to make ends meet. So a small relief amount of $25 will show our support and acknowledge our commitment to them. Now, as we're already doing this for fire and EMS in the county, I believe most fire departments and EMS departments in the county are already turning this in, so that's not an extra amount out of the budget. The extra amount would most likely be coming from the law enforcement officers itself, and I've pretty much talked to some people, and Courtney here earlier today, and the estimated number of LEOs in the county is between 100 to 150 law enforcement officers, and that includes dispatch. So that's $2,500 to $3,750 that it's going to cost. So $2,500 or $3,750 just to include all of our first responders in that and give them a little bit of a break to say, hey, look, we're standing behind you, we understand. Along with that, that's the first thing. The second thing is coming to you because as I've been out knocking doors, as I am running for Commissioner of Revenue, a lot of citizens who are on that Senior Citizens and Disabled Tax Relief Program have come forward and just asked for something on the annual license tax fee. So it's also to say, hey, if they qualify for that Senior Citizens Disabled Tax Relief Program, that they have to go through every year to make sure they qualify, is to allow them, because they don't get any relief on that personal side. They only get it on the real estate side at $200, is to allow them that annual tax exemption as well. That's those two things in regards to the annual license tax fee. Additional topic that's on that bulletin is pretty much going in line with what other communities have done and what the state code of Virginia and the Virginia Constitution allows, and that is providing a full exemption from real estate taxes for spouses of first responders, fire, EMS, law enforcement who die in the line of duty while serving our citizens. It'd be a huge show of respect to honor the fallen heroes who've given their life serving our community. And it will prevent additional struggles from the burden of going from 2 incomes to 1. And this is often the case whenever we lose a loved one, whether it's a line of duty death or just a loved one dying. They would, by the Constitution of Virginia and the code section, they'd only be eligible while the surviving spouse is unmarried. Other localities, including Washington County, have adopted similar ordinances to this because the state code and Constitution allows you to adopt that ordinance. And that specific code section is 58.1-3219.13 through 58.1-3219.16, and the Virginia Constitution section 6B. But that is the main reason why I came to you all today, is to present those for your discussion, present those for your consideration, so we can show our support and take a stand and let all of our first responders know that we are behind them 100%. And I think Charlie might have a question. No, okay. Well, I've got one other thing, because it has came to my attention that some people have been asked, because I did announce a land use program valuation fix of recognizing the state recognized values from the state leading experts. I just wanted to take a quick second to say that's estimated at $200,000 or less. We cannot have a hard number to that fix because we do not track the number of acres in the land use program at this time. That is something I do want to change, so we know exactly how much it would cost out of the budget. But that would only be around 0.15% of the county's estimated revenues for 23-24. So for less than 0.15%, we fix over assessment in the land use program. And if we don't go all the way down to that CLAC value, we can come close enough to it so we can defend those values and say we did consider those values. Just to approach that topic right fast and nip that one in case. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have one quick question. Mr. Powers, I do not oppose the proposed tax relief for the first responders and law enforcement. My question to you would be, how do we validate the authenticity of the claim? And I guess maybe my own ignorance is showing here, because I would assume we have some entry and exit of the eligibility. How would we track that?
So on the main one, and not the line of duty death. So we'll go to the main one for annual exemption. That comes from your department chiefs, and they will provide active membership roles at whatever time the board would set. So if it's as of March 1st, they send in a list. If one of those members want to come by and apply and try to figure out why they're not having it, we can go and ensure, hey, did somebody get left off the value or left off the roster? Things of that nature. We can go through because that's already happening. Chiefs are already having to send that in on the fire EMS side. So it would be going to our law enforcement officer chiefs and our sheriff saying, we need a list of all your employees that fall into this category. Just give us the names and we apply it to whether they're a Smyth County citizen.
Mr. Crawford will have that.
Yeah.
On record as well.
So I guess one other follow-up question, would that be the roster as of, say, like April 15th or some arbitrary date that would say?
So you could arbitrarily set that date to whatever you feel comfortable comfortable with for that year. I would always go and say earlier in the year before June. That way, whenever it goes over the treasurer's hands to start sending those tax bills out, then everything's in place and we're good to go. And we can go, here's the list of names that get that $25 exemption.
Okay.
We can
Thank
go
you.
ahead and put that in that assessment.
For volunteer.
And just in case you do have a question on the line of duty death, that would go through a certification, one time have it on file, and then each year they just renew that up to making sure they're still unmerited and meet all the program eligibility requirements as set by the Code of Virginia.
Okay, thank you.
What if the death has already occurred? Do we extend that to the widow?
So we can do that. And I would recommend that we do extend that to the widow.
I just would like to point out one thing, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Reiner. I noticed on page 2 of the little handout, the last sentence, we apparently need to update our code because it says, upon meeting these qualifications, the treasurer shall issue a free county sticker or decal. We've been doing that for a really long time.
And just as a note on that as well, the code online also has the fee at 15 instead of 25. So
Great.
just as a heads up on that as well.
Thank you.
But any other questions that I can answer on anything?
Does that mean we need to go back and give everybody a refund if we've been charging in wrong? I'm just asking a question.
I mean,
Donation, everybody's made a donation.
and I believe one of those eligibility requirements for the annual tax exemption is that they have to be fully paid up on their taxes. So if you set that date as of April 15th, if they haven't fully paid their last year's tax bill by April 15th the following year, they would not qualify for that exemption. So sort of like you got to pay your bill to get the exemption.
And that exemption only applies to one motor vehicle or?
It would be one. I don't know if the board could set that as more than one. I don't know if the board would, at its pleasure, want to set that at more than one license fee, but I believe it would be for the officer themselves.
Every time I pass the person, they're in a different vehicle, so I'm gonna.
And it's also one of those things of we have law enforcement couples, so each one of them would get that exemption.
We just need to confirm the state code on the exemption. It's volunteer fire department and volunteer rescue squad. I don't know the one for law enforcement. We check the state code and see.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll sit down and let you all get back to it.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers.
Of course.
Okay, this is citizens' time. Anyone else wishing to speak? Come on ahead, Ms. DeBoy.
Anna Lee DeBoard, 343 College Street, Marion. First, I'd like to thank those of you who signed the proclamation. It's been 236 years since the Constitution was signed. So this is the beginning of Constitution Week, and hopefully there'll be posters and things in the schools and in the libraries. So thank you for that. I'm doing DAR and Historical Society all in one. The lady, what's her name? Colleen Callahan, came from Richmond today, picked up the Civil War uniform. It's on the way to Richmond, and I asked her how long it would take, because it's in pretty rough shape, and she said, hopefully by March or April. That's awesome, because that's when we'll open up and start a new season, so we'll have it in the display case, and that's fun. And then if you're not busy Sunday at 2 o'clock, Aspenville Cemetery, we have the dedication of the Madam Russell brand new headstone, and that's in conjunction with the Wade Campbell Wreath Laying. And it's going to be a busy weekend, but it's been a great weekend, and thank you so much for your support on that uniform, because she lifted it up and looked at it, it was like, ooh. So it's going to be a challenge for her, but she said she could do it, so that was positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
If anyone in here hasn't been down to visit the museum down in for us old folks, Parks Belt Building, you need to go by, because it is a treasure to go in there and see what all she has. What all they have. I credit to Anna Lee, but you need to go by and spend some time and spend an afternoon in there, because it's quite interesting.
We're open 6 days a week from noon to 4.
Thank you.
And we don't charge admission. We just want you to come and see what we have at the museum. Thank you all.
Thank you. According to Leanne, we're now according to Lori, we're now to old business.
Hey, you forgot me.
Oh, the sign-up sheet. Who did not bring the sign-up sheet for citizens comment? Oh.
Come forward and state your name and address. I'm sorry, Mr. Watson.
Okay, Charles Watson, Wasona. I'd like to second what Annalee DeWard said. This Sunday's the anniversary of signing of the Constitution by the Second Continental Congress, September 17, 1789. And it's more important than ever to read the Constitution, know it, and stand up for it. An example of that is in New Mexico, a few days ago, the governor claimed she had the right to issue an order under a public health emergency that no one could carry a gun or concealed carry or open carry. And the resistance to that was amazing. People just said, we're not obeying this. They went out with their guns and everything. Sheriff said, I will not ever enforce unconstitutional measures because it wasn't a law. And the governor of New Mexico said the same thing, and the Attorney General of Virginia said the same thing. I will not enforce unconstitutional things. So I hope the Sheriff's Department here will do the same thing, and I hope you all support him in that too. But I was talking to Don Henderlight, I guess you may know of him. He runs the Marion Water Treatment Plant. We were talking today as I was out working on the farm. And we decided that Smyth County is the best place to be. You don't want to be in Florida, all the hurricanes. You don't want to be in California with all the crazy people. You want to be up north because they speak bad. Right here, we're protected from a lot of everything. And we came to the conclusion it's because God is protecting this area. And I do believe that. So this Sunday, this was in the newspaper. This Sunday there's a revival over towards where the sheriff's department is. About 30 churches have gotten together. They're going to have a revival, and Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And I just hope a lot of people will come, and I hope they'll preach the real gospel, not any false gospels. And the reason I'm so excited about that is because the Constitution is a godly document founded by people who were implementing the Hebrew Republic 10 Commandments laws and put it into the Constitution. People have rights, governments have powers, but the people have the rights, and y'all's duty is to help us save power. And if you think the rising generation is going to let us down, this thing went viral. 12-year-old kid was told by his teacher at school that he couldn't wear the Gadsden flag to school one day. And so his mother and the 12-year-old went in and talked to the teacher, and the teacher said, well, it's a racist symbol. And they just laughed at her. She's got a video of the whole meeting, and it's up on YouTube. It's like 12 million views. It just went crazy. And this guy said, look, this is a Revolutionary War symbol. This is for fighting against the British. British are trying to enslave America. It has nothing to do with, with black slavery or anything like that. So there are people out there that are, upholding the Constitution. So I think the hope for this country. But keep on your prayers and read the story of Hezekiah and read the story of Jeremiah in the Bible. And there is hope for this country. And I hope y'all can be on the godly bandwagon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? This is your chance. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, or the citizens' time. Now, old business, budget committee.
Okay, so the Budget Committee did have a meeting on Thursday, September 7th. Had a few items on the agenda. The first was a request from the Legal Aid Society to request that the county serve as fiscal agent for them to apply for the opioid abatement authority funding, similar to what we did with the Community Services Board. The Legal Aid Society, they're looking to apply for funding to help fund dedicated attorneys to provide legal guidance for anyone with substance use disorder or anyone that's affected by opioids. Following conversation, Mr. Sturgill did make a recommendation for the county to serve as fiscal agent for the Southwest Virginia Legal Aid Society, while Ms. Deal seconded the motion, and it was unanimously approved as a recommendation from committee. That would, I would say that will cost us very little, if anything, because we already have the setup established with a Matt Rogers group.
All right, you heard the motion from the committee, or recommendation committee. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify. Let's do this differently. Signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous.
Okay, the next item we talked about was budget amendment largely related to the school funding, house budget versus skinny budget. About a $600,000 difference that to rectify the county budget to the school board budget. The school board's budget was based on the skinny budget that was finally approved by the General Assembly, which is about $600,000 less than what the House budget proposal was. So taking that $600,000 off and accommodating, there were a few other changes that we needed. We received a Brownfields grant, ARC library grant for Saltville library branch, and a few other maintenance costs. Overall, the budget amendment was for a decrease of $99,916. Following conversation, Mr. Sturgill did make a motion to recommend approval of budget amendment number 2, and Ms. Deal seconded the motion, and it was unanimously approved as a committee recommendation.
Okay, once again, we have a committee recommendation. Anyone have any discussion? I have one question that came to my mind after we approved this in committee, and because we have appropriated the full school budget as originally proposed, does this $99,000 go to reduce that appropriation by $99,000, or have we appropriated more than the budget?
Actually, the appropriation request from the school board was based on their budget in their books versus what we had in ours. So we had, it was me, I had inadvertently had a higher number of state funds funded than the school board did. So the 600,000 wasn't even incorporated in their request at all. So when they did 1/4 of their total, they didn't even include the 600,000.
So we're good on that.
We're good on that, yeah.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, sir.
Didn't want Dennis to think he had a free reign with our money. Okay, we have a committee recommendation. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0.
Okay. Only other thing we talked about with the budget committee, I did give them an update of what we heard from VACO regarding the state budget. As you know, the General Assembly finally took action. Governor has signed, I think he signed everything today. And part of that state budget does have some effects on the county. It included additional 2% increase for constitutional officers, sheriff's office, the courthouse, those positions. It included, and that was effective December 1st. It included an additional 2% raise for teachers, which would be effective January 1st. We won't have actual revenue projections or revised expenditures until probably mid-October. So later on in October, we'll have at that budget committee, we'll hopefully have another round of whether it's budget amendments or budget transfers. We'll accommodate the state funding then. And in your package, you have that kind of a breakdown from VACO memo. But other than that, that's all the budget committee had.
Okay, thank you. Water and Sewer Committee. Roscoe's the chair and he's not here.
So I'm prepared to take that one if you'd like, Mr. Chairman.
No.
You don't have to tell him twice.
Please go ahead, Clay.
So the Water and Sewer Committee also met on September the 7th, and the one item on their agenda was to discuss the 5 flat rate sewer accounts that have been lingering for quite some time now. All 5 of these accounts have accumulated an extraordinary balance due to non-payment. And so presented to the committee that day was a recommendation from staff along with Mr. Farthing, and that was effectively to write off all of the debt that was older than 60 months. And then we further recommended that the interest and penalty for the last 60 months also be forgiven, and that basically they be presented with an invoice for just their flat rate sewer bill for the last 60 months. And because it's flat rate, that would make the total for each of these 5 accounts the same, which is $2,923.56. So that was the recommendation made to the committee. Ultimately, a motion was made by Rye Valley District Supervisor Lori Deal to recommend approving the recommendation from staff as noted in each of the 5 letters, which were included in your packet. To the past due account holders, Saltville District Supervisor Roscoe Call seconded the motion, and it was unanimously approved.
That's a committee recommendation. Any discussion?
I have a question real quick. So they're gonna receive a bill for $2,923, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thereabouts. So is there an expectation they would just write a check and cover it all, or will they be allowed to break it up over a period of time, or?
Yes, we've given them the option to come in and work out a payment plan. And so we'll work with them individually as they come in if they need to do that.
Second to last paragraph in the letter.
Okay, very good, thank you, sir.
And I would like to point out for the 60, reason we did 60 months is that because our attorney told us that 5 years is all we can really go back and enforce. So that's why we're doing the 5 years.
Correct.
So, any other questions? All those in favor of approving these letters? Oh, excuse me.
I just want to make sure, I mean, we've got something in place to ensure we're following up on these currently to not see this again.
Yeah, we have the staffing in place that's tracking it.
I've heard that story before, but we have to assume this time they mean it.
I heard so.
They've got a different staff, different people doing it.
Yeah. I brought that.
I mean, I remember, I was around when we did the last write-off of 1.1 million or whatever it was. So, yeah, I want to make sure we don't get there again. It's a bit ridiculous. But when you look at how some of these numbers came about, it's crazy. 5% every month, it really adds up quickly.
Especially when some of these accounts are close to 20 years old.
Yeah.
So yeah, they compound quickly.
Yes, sir.
They should never get that.
Never been able to get that far.
Exactly.
I mean, we've got to stay on this.
And then we're following us like the wheel. And when you get up here, you better make sure of that too.
Go ahead.
We're not creating a precedent that might come back and bite us later, are we? That's the only thing I want to make sure of.
What's that?
We're not creating a precedent that may come back and bite us later.
Well, this is just, in my opinion, this was just us not paying attention. Like, if I walk out of Food City, they're gonna make sure I pay for all my groceries. If I don't pay Thomas Bridge my water bill, they're gonna cut my water off. Like, this just completely got out of hand and somebody wasn't paying attention.
And the biggest issue here is we don't have that stick, like Thomas Bridge, it's hard to go and cut a sewer connection off. And you gotta take a excavator out and saw a sewer manhole, and it's pretty intense, but
But all you gotta do is
set the precedent.
well,
You do one,
you
it'll
do
take care of
one,
the rest
and
of it.
it'll take care of the rest of them.
Right.
But we hope this will resolve a lot of problems and clean up our paperwork.
Yes, that is certainly the hope.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of sending out these letters and doing what it says, signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous. What else you got, sir?
So that's it for water and sewer, solid waste. I believe you were the chairman. If you'd like me to address that, I'll do that as well.
Go right ahead.
Sure. So solid waste also met on Thursday, September the 7th. They had 2 items on their agenda. One was for informational purposes only. It was an update on the work at the transfer station in Chilhowie. we managed to remove the chute down there, and then just today we approved a contract for a local company to come in and replace the damaged wall columns. So hopefully that work will take place in the very near future, and then we'll move on to the next phase of getting some designers in there to come up with a plan to remodel the transfer station and potentially put an addition on. So that was just for informational purposes. The one action item that they considered that day was an agreement with County, Bland County, and Washington County to basically retain the services of AECom to do a white paper on a proposed regional incinerator. And this, of course, was a result of the closing of the Bristol landfill. We were kind of all stuck in the same boat of what do we do, and there weren't many viable options, and so there was discussion about, you know, a regional incinerator, and to maybe progress that effort, the proposal is just to have a white paper done to see if it's feasible. And I believe all three jurisdictions have agreed recently to pay their share of this proposal, and so that's the recommendation of the committee. A motion was made by Saltville District Supervisor Roscoe Call to recommend approving funding for the white paper study prepared by AECom with a partnership with Bland and Washington Counties. Atkins District Supervisor Charles Atkins seconded the motion, and it was unanimously approved.
That's a committee recommendation. I would like to point out when he referenced the fact that each county would pay their share, with Washington and Smyth County would all be $6,000. Bland County, because of their small size, is $3,000. So that's the dollar amount we're talking about.
2,000.
2,000. Okay.
And the Smyth County, since we have AECom on our term contract, that's why we're taking the lead on it.
Okay. But that's a study to see if it's going to look like it's going to be feasible. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on those.
Quick question before we get there. Is this just a, forgive me if it's already been spoken and I forgot it that fast. Is there going to be any kind of recycling component to this proposed, or is that going to be explored as a possibility as opposed to just incinerating it?
Yeah, so we actually started researching the idea of recycling about the same time we started going down the path of a regional incinerator. We applied for a grant to try to get a compactor in here so that we could start recycling plastic, aluminum, and cardboard. Unfortunately, we received news this week that we weren't approved for that grant, but certainly that conversation will continue as we look for better ways and more cost-effective ways to deal with our solid waste.
And the best thing about a incinerator that I've learned is even if you don't have a recycling program, it's going to grab all the metal, and anything is magnetized before it goes into the incinerator anyway. So you're at least somewhat recycling, even though you don't have a full recycling program. So we're getting that benefit if we end up with an incinerator.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous. What's it? Yeah, I've gotten used to that.
And that's all we have for solid waste. Thank you.
Thank you. Appointment committee. Well, Roscoe's the chair. You want to take it, sir?
I'm glad to take it. We did have, I think, 5 appointments to go over. The first appointment, the committee met on September 7th, and the first appointment they considered was to the CPMT committee as the parent representative. We haven't had a parent representative on the CPMT for several months. A recommendation from Social Services was to appoint Diane Choparich, and there was a nice little summary of her background. I think she could be a good addition. She has experience in Wythe County with CPMT oversights. Motion was made by Mr. Adkins to recommend appointing Diane Choparich as a parent representative to the CPMT. And Mr. Widener seconded the motion. It was unanimously approved as a recommendation from committee.
Okay. I would like to point out in making this, since I made the motion, I have suggested and highly encouraged that when we have appointments like this coming before us, I would like to see two things. One, a quick synopsis of what skills this position might require. And number two, a listing of the talents and skills that the person being nominated might have and how the two might fit together. I know I've been asked in the past to make recommendations to a name. All I knew was a name, and I think we sitting up here need to know more than just a name. We need to know the skill levels of what we're, so we're getting the right people in the right jobs. The county will move forward a lot easier. But having said that, I made this motion based on that information. Any more comments or questions? Yes, sir.
What does the acronym stand for, the CPMT?
It's the Community Policy Management Team. It's basically the team that oversees the CSA funds, Comprehensive Services Act funds, whether to foster care, adoptions, operations in the social services.
Okay, thank you.
It's basically a fund that we have no control over on the county. We have to pay whatever the costs are. We can't budget. That's why we come back with a budget amendment every January, February.
And it's like 5 or 6 different agencies that can push. I served on this committee for quite a few years, and it's like 5 or 6 different committee type organizations, the sheriff's office, the court system, CSA, just all different groups can put people into this, kids into this program. And once they're in there, we have to make sure that they have the schooling they require, the living arrangements that's required, and then that can run into some money. We're sending kids all the way up to Virginia Beach. That's one reason why I'm happy we can get some things here in Smyth County. Because it costs a lot to send a kid to Virginia Beach, and I think it's something, at least we used to, if the kid was out there once a month, we had to provide at least where one of the parents can, we'd either take the parent or one way or another, make sure that one of the parents could go there. So you're spending money pretty quickly. And that's why we need somebody there that's gonna sit in and know what's going on, and they speak for us. So having said that, any more questions? That's a good question.
Yeah, it's shocking all the price tag of it.
Tell me about it. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
Next item was the reappointment of a couple members of the Smyth with Airport Commission. The first one is a joint member that's appointed by the county and the town of Marion together. The town of Marion has taken action on reappointing Billy Dungan earlier this week, and to an additional 4-year term. The following conversation, the motion was made by Mr. Atkins to recommend reappointment of Mr. Dungan to the Airport Commission with a 4-year term, September 14th, 2027. Mr. Widener seconded the motion, and it was unanimously approved. Now, Mr. Atkins, we talked earlier about a potential change, so you want to?
Yeah, basically I'm asking probably that you vote this down. I don't want this board making appointments at the next board. We'll have 2 new members on board in January. And I just think the whole board should have that option. So I'm asking that we change this to where we appoint these 2 individuals now to expire December 31st, and then come back in December and appoint them again to expire in 4 years.
Or January.
January, because I think the new board should have the input for the next 4 years and not.
Is that a motion?
We gotta
Just
vote
put
this
this
one down and then one of y'all make that motion for me.
Well, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Could we somehow send something back to the appointment committee to take a look at maybe revamping the whole, because this happens for every appointment.
To get them all in line.
To get them all in line. I don't know if it's changing the terms or changing when they're appointed, or I just feel like it falls like right before whoever's coming off the board leaves. It's like they're appointing people for the next person to.
Well, and I almost wonder if you wouldn't be better off, you said December 31st, if you wouldn't be better off doing it maybe January 31st.
Something like that, yeah.
Just
Because
so
when
you
you
don't
do have somebody.
You can reappoint them in January to a additional
Right.
months.
Okay, and how do we wanna handle it?
Well, what I'd recommend, if we take care of these, vote these down tonight, and do the January 31st, we can pull together a summary Excel sheet of all of the appointees that you make, whether it's a district or a non-district, and what the I guess the term's ending. It may take us a couple of years to move into this, because I don't know that you want to unappoint and then reappoint for 6 months. But what we can do, we can pull that together.
Well, I think what causes it is our appointments end December 31st, but some of them fall on the fiscal year of like July, and
Right.
Yeah.
so that messes it up too.
In other words, let's take care of these two tonight, although they're serving until somebody else replaces them, so really we don't need to, we can just wait till we get it all together. But, I guess it's whatever the pleasure of the board is tonight.
I'd like to go ahead if we can at least get these.
Get these two?
Yeah.
Well, let's just leave it like it is right now with this date, or?
Now, well,
Vote it down.
I'm fine with, I think it's appropriate for January 31st of '24, and we'll revisit everything in January like we do for all the other appointments.
Okay, so let's vote these two down, and then somebody make a motion for.
January 31st.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor as the recommendation of the committee, signify by raising your right hand.
Oh, no, sorry. I just found a.
We have one that wasn't listening.
No, I found
I
a
saw
spelling
it.
error with E.
All right,
Sorry.
all those opposed, signify by raising your right hand.
No.
You can raise it now. All right.
Sorry.
I'll go ahead and just throw out the recommendation for Curtis Pennington. A motion was made and seconded to reappoint him, and another one that needs to be voted
His
down.
with needs an E also.
It does.
So we need to vote him down also.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All those in favor of Curtis Pennington being reappointed to this date, signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, please raise your right hand. Okay, both motions fail. Now I'll entertain one motion for both of them.
So moved.
It's January 1st, 2024.
January 30.
June 31st.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second from Mr. Widener. Any discussion? Sorry about all the confusion, but
That's good.
No, I think this fixes
Yep.
ongoing problems that we've had.
I know there's been instances where people have made appointments for people coming on the board, and they should have had that right. So, all those in favor as now changed, signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
Thanks, sir. Next item we discussed was the position of building official. Mr. Danny Wilson has passed 2 of the 3 required tests, and staff would like to go ahead and recommend appointing him as the county building official, replacing Clegg Williams. After discussion, motion was made by Mr. Adkins, seconded by Mr. Widener to recommend appointment of Danny Wilson as Smyth County building official, and it was unanimously approved as a committee recommendation.
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we've got it. Any
No,
question?
wait, we don't need
We don't
to.
need to.
Committee recommendation.
We can go ahead, don't matter. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous. You're stuck now.
Chairman, may I have just a
Sure.
moment?
Please come.
I
Don't
just
tell
want to
us
take
you're
it.
gonna quit. You're turning in your nose.
Name and address.
I'm Danny Wilson, 465 Summer Street Avenue. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the appointment committee for the trust and confidence they've placed in me and the board, and for their approval. And I just hope carry on the good work that was done by those folks in this position prior to me. Thank you
We
again.
want to keep you busy now.
I don't
That's
think-
one of our goals, is to keep you busy.
Yes, sir. I don't think there's any problem with that.
Mr.
Thanks
Wilson
again.
will do an
Thank you.
excellent job.
We
I
appreciate
highly
you.
recommend it.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, sir.
The next item is a little different than what's in your packet. We had a copy and paste error. So discussion of Manuel Street being appointed to the Upper Tennessee River Roundtable to replace Mr. Williams, since the Keep It Virginia Beautiful Committee is being combined back into the Upper Tennessee Roundtable. After discussion, Mr. Adkins did make a motion to recommend appointment of Manuel Street to replace Clegg Williams in his unexpired term on the Upper Tennessee River Roundtable. Mr. Courtney Widener seconded the motion, and it was unanimously approved. I'll say that unexpired term is December 31st, 2023.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous. You gonna have anything left to do, Clay?
Nope.
He's gonna make sure the water bill's not.
I know you don't have anything to do. Public Safety Committee. That's you, Lord.
That would be me, Mr. Chairman. It's a long one, so bear with me. The Public Safety Committee met on September 7th at 11 a.m. First item of discussion was the county and town EMS agreement. This is a long, grueling process, but I think we've finally come to some terms that hopefully will work moving forward. We basically have an agreement that is between the town of Marion and the town of Chilhowie related to EMS services funding. The agreement has been signed and agreed upon by both the town of Marion and the town of Chilhowie, and it is waiting for final approval from the Board of Supervisors. I did ask a quick question about EMS billing. The town of Marion, the town of Chilhowie and the county have the same billing process. The town of Marion is a little bit different, but in the future, we're hoping that everybody's going to be using the same billing process, and that it will be more efficient and consistent. So we're hoping to work that out moving forward. Do we need to approve that?
Yeah, there's a next page.
Okay. All right. Chief Haynes stated that the town council voted to approve pay increase to be equal with the county department. Chilhowie was the lowest, and then the county, and then Marion being the highest. So we're trying to get all on the same page as far as pay is concerned, so we're not internally competing against one another for personnel. Although the town of Marion looks a little bit higher on paper, I believe with
Actual
benefits
take-home
and
is-
actual take-home is right about the same. I did bring up a point about the agreement, since there are three parties signing and agreeing to that. If changes needed to be modified in the future, would it be easier to separate the agreement, have one with the town of Chilhowie and one with the town of Marion? But Mr. Crawford made a good point that the goal is to be completely transparent with all three parties. So the town of Marion can't be talking to the county about doing one thing for them and not including Chilhowie or vice versa. So, but if that needs to be separated in the future, it could be. Mr. Up briefly discussed the draft job description that we've been proposing for a full-time fire and EMS chief position at the town of Marion. Since that would be part fire, part EMS, of course the county would put some funding into that, and looking at what that pay scale would be was discussed, and that position is formally appointed by the town council. So Mr. Up wanted to make sure that the county has a seat at the table if that position, if we do move forward with that. Of course, Mr. Barker from the town of Marion noted that he would like our county administrator to have a seat at the table since it was such an important decision. Then we also discussed what qualifications they would envision for the Marion chief position. After further discussion, the following motion was made by Mr. Widener to approve the EMS agreement between the county of Smyth, the town of Marion, and the town of Chilhowie for the provision of emergency medical services. Chilhowie District Supervisor Mike Sturgill seconded the motion, and it was unanimously approved, and that is a committee recommendation.
All righty. Any further discussion of that?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
It's on page 94.
Regarding the comment about where Chilhowie and the county is the same and Marion's a little different, is that a software issue that they're a little different, or is it a philosophical difference?
Yeah.
We're using the same third party billing as the town of Chilhowie, and the town of Marion uses a different one. So that agency does things differently than what ours in Chilhowie does. So our checks go to our billing agents. Marion's goes to Marion and is reported back to the third party. It's a little bit different.
So it's a reconciliation or a billing platform?
Basically.
I guess that was ultimately my question, is a software billing issue. Okay.
Well, and I'll just explain, just to be honest about why I asked. My grandmother, we had to call for her, and we're in Marion's call area, and their billing company sent a bill to my 87-year-old grandmother who doesn't do her own bills. My mother does them for her, thankfully. So my mom wrote the check to the town of Marion and paid the bill. The next month she received another bill. Well, my mom's like, I paid that. So when she called the billing company, she said that the town of Marion did not let her know that the bill had been paid. So they said, you either need to send a canceled check or we need approval from the town of Marion. Well, after several attempts to get in touch with Marion, basically the billing company was saying it's an outstanding bill until we get proof otherwise. So finally, the town of Marion got back to my mom and said they were sorry that had happened. They've made sure that it's in place, but then she won't get any more bills. My argument to that was, if my mother was not taking care of my 87-year-old grandmother's bills, my 87-year-old grandmother probably wouldn't have known any better, so she would have wrote another $200 check to the town of Marion. So now she's $400 into a $200 bill. Who would have caught that? Would they have given her a refund? How many times has this happened to other people who may be elderly and maybe don't pay attention? So the flip side of it, the town of Chilhowie and the county, you actually pay the billing company and there's no middleman in between, which makes for a better accounting, and there's less room for mistakes.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
The next item of discussion was community event staffing. As you all know, recently had the Saltville Labor Day celebration. Lots of folks attended there, and the EMS was present. They are moving around, and Mr. Widener actually noted that he was there and saw them and thanked them for their work. And Mr. Sturgill also noted that he was thankful for the presence at the football games. And Mr. Crawford noted that he'll make sure that Northwood 7th and 8th grade JV football, Northwood Middle School basketball games are staffed as well. He also briefly discussed recent community events and stated that they were helping with traffic control and crowds. And the next large event coming up is the Chilhowie Apple Festival. And Mr. Crawford is going to get with Chief Haynes to see what the needs are and make sure we have plenty of staffing for that as well. Next item is the PSAP Brightspeed discussion. Mr. Crawford discussed the draft letter that was provided in the packet related to the incident that resulted in the dispatch center operating at 40% capacity for over a week. Long story short, this was a huge issue. Folks calling 911 to get a busy signal is unacceptable. It was on Brightspeed's end. It was literally less than a 5-minute fix that could have been taken care of. But unfortunately, our citizens and our service suffered because of their ignorance, basically, is the best way to put it.
I would even go as
And
far as lack of desire
irresponsibility
to fix.
and lack of desire to fix it. So, needless to say, everybody's very frustrated with this. And apparently other localities are experiencing similar issues with this company as well. So, Mr. Crawford said he would like to get signatures from the sheriff as well as our board chair. And after the following discussion, the motion was made by Mr. Sturgill to recommend approving the letter to Brightspeed regarding the recent PSAP outage. And Royal Oak District Supervisor Courtney Weiner seconded the motion, and it was unanimously approved. And you can find that letter on page 98.
All right, any discussion on that?
I'm sorry, I seem to monopolize questions tonight.
Okay.
Is there any mechanism for a busy signal to hit our 911 to roll to another locality, be it Washington or with?
Not yet.
Not yet, but that's on
But
the...
it will, yeah. Part of the new system will have that backup capability.
Okay, I'm satisfied.
And this was like the backup of the backup of the backup fell, because there's five trunks.
We have 5 trunks and 3 of them were empty.
3 of them were
Or-
empty, so you had one call come in, second call come in, third call comes in, it got a busy signal.
Actually, a little bit even worse. One of the trunks that was there was dedicated to landlines, and one was
right.
dedicated
I
to
forgot to
sales.
point
So if
that
we
out,
had 2 landline calls at the same time, the second
This-
one would get a busy signal.
Right.
Okay, thank
And
you.
Luckily, it didn't happen very often, but
Even if we had rollover at that time, it would not have operated.
because of the trunks.
Because of the trucks being down the way they were.
And when we say simple fix, like, it was a simple fix.
Unplug a wire and plug it into the right spot. and
Right.
That was it.
Any more questions? I got, it really, we're making some discussion as to what to do in the future, but what if they continue to have this attitude that we're unimportant and
Well, that's what's frustrating, because they're our only option.
Yeah, there's no other option.
Yeah.
now are we going, when we get into the courthouse up there, are they still gonna be our,
They will be one of them that will have the next generation 911, which will have AT&T as a component also, but I'm not sure if, I think Brightspeed is still the end provider. They're the ones that go into the building for us, even with AT&T involved. But yeah, that's what we're hoping to grab with this letter.
Is it something with their capacity or something like that, that there's other, that they have something the others don't?
I think it might be region. The gentleman that came from Virginia Beach, this was day 7, either day 7 or day 8, came from Virginia Beach. We got there about 8:30, and I think it was fixed by 9:05. It was something that he had seen before, and he recognized really quickly. It's a shame that they didn't make that call, several days before, but yeah, I think it's just capacity on a regional level.
Silly question. Let's say Carroll County's updating their program and they want a recommendation from us. What's our response to that? How happy are we with Brightspeed? Show them this letter?
Well, actually, I think they're
happy.
probably in the same boat, but because
It's a regional footprint.
yeah, Brightspeed, if you look back years ago, I think the initial phone company was Sprint. So Sprint had all of the main connections in Southwest Virginia, so it's kind of trickled down into this, and everybody's connected to has the same type of connection.
Sort of scary.
So, forgive me, one more question, and I'll be quiet. Is there any evidence of constituent harm or patient harm, or was anybody harmed because of the lack of communication?
That's one thing that I asked. Nothing that we can tell. I asked Gabe, the manager, to look into that. And I don't think nothing that's come to air that we know of. No.
But this would be, in my world, would be considered a near miss.
A near miss would be a good way to put it.
And the next time may not be a near miss and may have a casualty because of that. Okay.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to recommend approving the letter, signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
All right, the next item of discussion was Saltville flooding. Mr. Crawford briefly discussed the recent flooding events in Saltville in late August. He said there were crews from the county and school board as well as the fire departments from Chilhowie and Saltville. He advised he was asked to help facilitate a Q&A with affected residents on the flooding, and he will be following up soon with concerns. He stated that he would like the board to ask VDOT to look at culverts along Route 91 in Saltville and advise that they are covered with grass and causing a lot of runoff flooding. I'm also, while we're on that, I would like to read a text that was sent, because it's a shout out to Mr. Utt. Let's see if I can find that quickly. I believe that was sent to you too, Mr. Sturgill. This is from Brad Martin, the town manager of Saltville. He said, I do not have other board members' phone numbers, but I wanted to reach out as my last things before hitting the hay, so I hope you will share this with them. Saltville was overwhelmed with rain this evening and our downtown flooded on a major scale. After ensuring that the town's sewer plant was secure, I went to help out with Public Works Department with shutting our main street down and working to get the town draining once the rain stopped. Without prompting, Sean Utt showed up and jumped into action. He assisted with logistical support between the first responder agencies and directly reached out to other localities for help. After that, along with me, Mayor Young, Councilman Sauls, Museum of the Middle Appalachians Board, town staff, and volunteers, Sean spent several hours vacuuming up work and helping move exhibits and coordinating resources from the county schools to help the situation. I'll follow up with an official email, but please share this with everyone. I truly appreciate his help this evening. He is a rock-solid asset to our county. So thank you, Mr. Utt.
Yes. Thank you.
Smyth County Public Safety Advisory Committee discussion was the next item on our agenda. Mr. Crawford explained the reasoning behind the new committee and referred to the draft charter and bylaws. He recommended that the committee take a recommendation to the full board to approve documents in order to move forward. I did question if he had thought about putting a citizen on the committee. He answered that he was not against it, but questioned how many would we need to be on the committee to represent the county as in full. He stated that it was possible to put one from each respective district but that may be something that the future board would choose. So basically what this does is takes our current chiefs meetings that are happening and makes them a formal committee that can, that has a charter and bylaws and committee, a voting committee that would bring recommendations to the board. So it formalizes it a little bit more, which I think is a great thing. After that discussion, Chilhowie District Supervisor Mike Sturgill made a motion to recommend moving forward with the approval of the Smyth County Public Safety Advisory Committee charter and bylaws, and Mr. Wagner seconded the motion, and it was unanimously approved, and that is a committee recommendation.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
Next item on the agenda was follow-up discussion on connectivity, and Mr. Crawford asked the committee for another month in order to work on this, and he'll report back to us at our October meeting, so I'll have more information on that next month. The next item was our radio project and dispatch relocation update. Mr. Crawford stated he's working with Motorola consistently and that they are in the process of doing primary surveying and getting infrastructure in place. They are also working with the owners of Betty's Knob Tower to get that secured, and he stated they're finalizing dispatch relocation to the courthouse and advised the final pathway studies are being conducted. Everything seems to be moving forward. August statistics were reviewed by Mr. Crawford, and those are for Station 4 and Station 6. They did pass out a spreadsheet for reference. The staff of Virginia Department of Fire Programs were in attendance to introduce themselves and provide an update on their ongoing work in and around the Commonwealth. And they did state that they have a plan on having a presence at future meetings, which I think will be great. Mr. Sturgill thanked them for taking the time to come and for introducing themselves. Next, Mr. Crawford gave an update on the upcoming Fire Academy in October and advised that they are starting to put the training academy to work. Next, Mayor Helms stated that he's really proud that everyone is working together and communicating, and he's amazed at Marion Fire and EMS and what they've have a lot of work to be proud of, and Chief Kiesling is doing a great job. The mayor also stated that the dispatchers need to work on their wording, especially for medical calls. So basically, when dispatch is putting out a call, they say it's a medical issue, and he would like for them to elaborate on that a little bit more. But in the defense of our dispatchers, sometimes that's all they get on the other end of the line is I have a medical issue and I need somebody to come help me. So there's kind of two sides to that comment. Mr. Paris was also in attendance with us, and he expressed his concerns regarding radio issues in the Adwolf service area. He stated in the last little bit it has gotten worse. Mr. Crawford indicated that nothing has been changed, only that they had added additional channels and that they have power units. So that is a concern that we need to keep an eye on moving forward, but hopefully once we get our new radio system in, that will be resolved. Our next meeting is September.
That's a mistake.
That's a mistake. It is not September. It is October 5th at 11 a.m. And no further business to discuss. The meeting was adjourned at 11:56.
All right, thank you very much. I want to make two comments. First off, I'm getting used to this terminology. So where is Station 4 and where is Station 6?
Station 6 is Atkins, and Station 4 is Salt.
Okay, just so I can be clear, that's the reason.
Sure.
And I'd like to, going back to the flood in Saltville, one of the comments made was a lot of the problems because the VDOT is not keeping using old folk they're not keeping the shoulders of the road ditched and the culverts open like they should. VDOT's supposed to be here tonight so we can talk to them. You can see they didn't show their face again. So
We do have them verified for the 28th, though.
Verified. We'll see. Okay, but personal opinion now, just a personal. I think we're getting a second fiddle on a lot of VDOT right now. They're not, you know.
We're not even getting a fiddle. Can't get an email answer.
I've had one request now for probably a month and a half. At the Atkins, right at the Atkins Fire Station, if you're coming out at the old Atkins Tank Road, looking to the west there to pull on Highway 11, which people fly around that corner talking about the split school zone there, you got about 100 feet to view because trees have grown up right to the shoulder of the road. I've asked them to come in there and trim those back, and it's a 5-minute job. And they haven't even, as far as I can tell, stopped and looked at it. Is it going to take somebody getting hit pulling out there to get them to look at it, it's ridiculous. Haven't even preached that, I'm gonna move on.
We can talk about it again. It is-
Yeah, we got VDOT coming up, we all got lots of comments.
All right, as far as I know now, we're up to planning commission recommendations.
All right, thank you. As most of you recall, we had a joint public hearing last month on August 24th. Consider a special use permit filed by Robert DeCamera and Sharon Hayden. That was for an expansion of their existing special use permit to add an airport hangar. Following that public hearing, after reviewing the request and taking into consideration all comments, Mr. Dean felt the application met the standards set out in Article 6-2.3 and made a motion to recommend approval of the special use permit to expand the applicant's airport. It was seconded by Ms. Meadows, and that motion passed with 5 voting yea, 1 abstention, or 1 absent, 1 abstention. The only thing I have to add to that is I did hear from Ms. Ogle today. She was unable to attend, and she asked that I read this to you. Mr. Williams, I will not be attending the board meeting tonight. I have COVID. I wanted to take this opportunity to express my opinion regarding the airport hangar proposed by Mr. DeCamera. If built as it was described at the Planning Commission meeting, it will be approximately 100 feet from my backyard, another invasion of my privacy and again intruding on my ability to enjoy my property. This is a non-conforming land use for this area. I have noticed the new map detailing the restrictions the conservation easement will have on where they build this structure. Building at the other end of the runway is not in conflict with those restrictions in any way. They may say otherwise, but it's not. Mr. DeCamera stated that he wanted the building situated so he could see the beautiful view of the mountains in his old age. The same view he has encroaching on my property is available to him from the other end of the runway. The mountains don't move to allow him a more desirable view. I ask that when you approve the airplane hangar, it be with the condition that it be built on the other end of the runway. It would promote a more harmonious community, which is one of the things you should consider when making your decision. For the record, I'm asking that this response be noted and read at the meeting. Thank you, Vita Ogle. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Give me just a second here. Now, this has already come up before the planning commission. Have they not approved it?
Correct. No, they recommended that it be approved.
Don't you usually read that to us?
I just did, yeah.
Ms. Ogle's letter's what I remember you.
Yeah, so right before that.
See, you're getting it out of order in my mind.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm old. I just had a birthday. I'm old, man.
All right, no problem. So, following the joint public hearing, the Planning Commission reconvened, and Mr. Dean felt the application met the standards set out in 6-2.3, made a motion to recommend approval of special use permit to expand the applicant's airport. That was seconded by Ms. Meadows, and that was passed with 5 voting in favor. 1 was absent, and there was 1 abstention.
Okay, sorry to put you.
That's okay, no problem.
All righty. We have any discussion on this board?
I have one question. I ask this question with every single thing. If somebody abstains or votes no, I always like to know why.
Did not indicate a reason.
Thank you.
Any more?
I have a question. The proposed site of the building itself, what is the distance from the property line? Question 1. Question 2, what's the distance from the building to Mrs. Ogle's house, dwelling? Do we have that information, or does it come from?
So here's a site plan that Mr. Rupp put together today, or combined to do effectively. You see 2 squares up top. The yellow one was on the original site plan. Mr. DeCamera indicated that he was going to put it where the yellow square is. He then decided to move it effectively 70 feet forward. So the night of the public hearing, we were all considering putting it where the red square is. Now there was some conversation about the conservation easement and where you could or couldn't do something. And so the red block that you see is part of that conservation easement. So I will just summarize that by saying that's a no-go zone. No structures in this red block. And of course, the airstrip itself is the long white line that you see north to south. And then Miss Odell, her home is up here.
We're 170 feet from the fence line, so I would assume that's going to be at least that far from the house.
Yeah, definitely. So if they're 170 feet
I'm
from the
sorry,
property
if-
line.
130, sir.
Sorry, yeah.
If they're 130 feet from the property line to the corner of the building, her house is all the way up there.
I rode out and looked at it, I mean, well, I think several of us went out and looked at it, we out stomping around on your property, apologize, but,
We waited till the hay was cut.
Yeah. We didn't mess up your hay.
yeah, I couldn't get one loaded to bring home with me, so. But, I
Can I
mean,
add something?
she's got trees growing in her yard that block any kind of view that she might be talking about. She'd have to go out, stand underneath the trees and hang over the fence more or less to see the beautiful view. In my opinion, this is my opinion again, you're getting a lot of me tonight. It's his property to build where he wants to, and he's backing off 100 and some feet. If he wanted to just put a big 3-story house there, he could do it and really block. I don't see how we as a board of supervisors with the information we've been given, I don't see how we can turn it down.
So I have one follow-up question, if I may. The proposed red square, the revised proposed location, the plane is occupying the building, for whatever reason it catches fire. Does that propose any hazard to Mrs. Odell's,
It will
any
be put-
immediate?
It will be put out faster because the fire department's entrance will be on that end where it is, so.
Yeah, there's enough space between them there.
It would not
Okay.
get out of control enough.
Very good,
I
thank
mean,
you.
if he has huge, and he says he's not going to do it, but if he were to have huge fuel storage there, it would still be safe for her house, or her house would still be safe.
I have a question, for Mr. Williams. If we could just clarify for everyone, what's the normal setback?
So the setback for a principal structure is 15 feet to the lot line.
And we're looking at 130.
You're looking at 130.
So, and I'm in agreement with Mr. Atkins on this, that I don't think there's a whole lot really to argue on this situation. He's, I think, substantially far enough away from the line. He's staying out of the conservation easement. I just, same way, I just don't see how we can dictate where he's gonna put this building on his property, as long as it's within the zoning ordinance.
Any other comments, discussion?
No, I'm satisfied.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve special use permit.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just request to do a voice vote on this.
Okay.
Put the glasses on.
Are we ready?
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson's absent. Dr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mr. Widener?
Yes.
Ms. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Call is absent. 5-0.
Okay. So we got that squared away for another meeting. Oh, now we get the real fun project, solar special use permit.
So, quick explanation. The next 3 items we have placed under old business. Not necessarily any action tonight, just more or less an update. And they'll remain under old business until they're ultimately resolved, okay? So with that in mind, the solar special use permit, this of course was submitted by Clean Footprint a couple months ago on the Smyth farm over in Cedar Branch. Staff is currently working to develop a proposed list of conditions that you may want to consider if you're inclined to approve that special use permit, and then also a proposed siting agreement. So our hope is to include that in your packet for your next meeting, 28th this month, for your review and consideration. And then of course we'll go from there once you've had an opportunity to do that.
So that's the update on the solar special use permit. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry. I'm full of questions tonight.
That's why we like
Mr.
having
Stevenson's
you on
not
this
here,
board.
I'm channeling.
Don't even say it. You do not have an inner Bill Stevenson in you.
My question is where, kind of where are we landing on the assimilation of the Halifax County guidelines that they spoke to us last meeting about?
So if I'm being perfectly honest, we've stolen every bit of it.
Okay.
I mean, just to put it bluntly, after Scott left, we had a follow-up conversation. He was kind enough to send me the last siting plan, or the last two siting plans that they negotiated for facilities in Halifax County, and then the last special use permit they approved. And so what we've done is we've taken that, we've swapped out Halifax County for Smyth County. There's obviously several code references that we've had to amend, and then what you will see when I get this to you are there's several sections that are highlighted, and those are ones that I've identified that are worth debating, considering, because they're site specific. So it may make sense in Halifax County, but maybe not in Smyth County. Or maybe we want to tweak some numbers as far as setbacks or buffers or the heights of trees or those sorts of things. And there's some that I just don't think will work. They, for example, have a burn ordinance. We don't. So I don't think there's much sense in prohibiting a fire or them burning brush on the property. So we borrowed every bit of that. And then my hope is that once we get that to you, that we're able to have that conversation and decide how we want to tweak that to make sense for Smyth County.
Okay, yeah, I'm kind of thinking if we have that to go by, I would feel more comfortable having an honest discussion about granting or not granting, whatever the case may be. So yeah, I'm good with that, thank you.
I would like to add that I had an opportunity to drive by the nearest facility we have here in Smyth County, and I meant to take some pictures. And I'm going to go back up there and take pictures, but if you get a chance to drive by the one in Wythe County, it's an eyesore. I don't know how else to say it. I would not want that anywhere in our county. You know, when we're trying to do our tourism based on the beauty of the county, you drive by there, grass is growing. I don't mean, if the pictures that Scott had of theirs down there where it was finely manicured, they had trees growing, looking nice and green. This place, you know, I think next year it'll probably be blackberry briars growing there. It was not a good looking facility. It may generate the electricity they want, but they're not taking care of it.
And that's where I would have to say, not to throw Wythe County under the bus, but that's the beauty of having a zoning ordinance. I mean, you know, this is your chance to develop a set of requirements that make it compatible in Smyth County.
I'm gonna bring you pictures so we'll be able to put up there, but I was astonished when I saw it. Having seen the ones that Scott brought us of his projects, and some that he felt was less desirable, they're palaces compared to the way the one in Wythe County looks.
Drive by some residential structures on Admiral Road. It's very comparable because they don't mow their yard.
We got a couple of those too, but I will get us pictures. But I see the importance, and I'm not one, we used to be big for zoning, but this to me is one reason why it will be good for us.
Yeah, and that's where, so issues like that easily addressed with setbacks and buffers and vegetation and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And that's all on the table when we discuss the, you know, requirements or conditions that you want to put on that special use permit.
Right. And you gotta get them up front. You can't come in after they start building it and say, well, we need this.
No, and that was the one thing that I latched onto with Scott's presentation, is that they took it a step further. They require that performance bond that guarantees that they actually comply with the special use permit requirements. And I thought that was a nice insurance policy to make sure that was done and followed up on.
Thank you, sir.
Thomas Bridge Road, correction.
All right, so if we're done with the solar special use permit, we'll move on to the arcade skill gaming. That was tabled, and we're still waiting for the state legislation to determine the direction we go on that. So again, that will remain on old business until that's resolved at the state level. And then the last item on old business is 1013 Ridge Road. This is the E&S complaint that we have over in Rich Valley. We are very, very close to getting that plan approved. Hopefully by tomorrow it is approved, and we'll be sending that letter out, letting the owner know what they need to do to pull the permit. And with any luck, by the next board meeting, I'll be able to report that a permit's been issued, and they'll be able to put that into play.
Nuisance, I hate to put you on the spot, but nuisance ordinances, especially the one on Perry Lane, if you,
Okay, so Perry Lane created a unique situation in the sense that a complaint was filed, public hearing was scheduled, the board declared it a public nuisance. The gentleman filed a plan of action, and then 2 days before that expired, he sold the property. So that created a pretty neat little trick. And so Mr. Atkins and I had a great conversation, and basically what we think needs to happen, or what the concept we'd like to pursue, is that once you all declare a piece of property a public nuisance, that we record a document that goes in the chain of title that tells the world that was declared a public nuisance, so that if it's sold, the next owner at least has a chance to discover that through the title exam. So that's something that we've sent an email to Scott about recently, and hope to work with him in the near future to develop that, and then future properties will be recorded that way. And I'll go a step further. So we've got one that's actually for sale on the courthouse steps tomorrow, St. Clair's Creek. So
The store over there.
the store. Now, the beauty to that one is that because it's being sold through the tax sale, we were able to get a message to them, and they will make a condition of that sale that the next owner clean that up or file a plan of action within a prescribed time.
Like we did on the Apples Road.
Exactly. So the one on St. Clair's Creek, like the one we did on Adam Wolf Road, that mechanism is in place because it's going through the tax sale. The unfortunate event in Perry Lane was it didn't go through tax. It went through a private treaty sale, and we had no way to get that message to the next owner until the deed was recorded, and then we picked up on it and unfortunately had to notify him, hey, you've got a public nuisance that you need to deal with. And as you can imagine, he's not terribly excited.
I just have a question real quick in reference to public nuisances. I know if somebody's living in a residence is one thing, but especially when you have places that are abandoned, like the ones we're talking about now, do we post anything?
We'll post notice. If I've been unsuccessful in getting in touch with the owners, we'll definitely post notice that public hearing's been scheduled to give them an opportunity to come.
I mean, post. Do we post something that lets
go out and
anyone that goes by that residence see that this has been declared a public nuisance?
Not after the fact, no. But that's another step that we could take.
Look at maybe doing. I think that would. I know that we have seen that in the town of Marion with some things that they've done, but I think for some kind of sign or something we can put out there so everybody can look at it and say, okay, this is something that's being addressed.
Yeah, so typically most of them have been posted just because they don't answer these letters. And so just if we do wind up in court, and Scott will probably back me up here, it's always nice to convince the judge that we did everything possible to let the owners know that we were having a public hearing to declare their property a public nuisance. So we'll do the certified letter, we'll do the first class mailing, we'll post the property that there's going to be a public hearing. But no, that's a great suggestion, and something that we can consider for future nuisances.
It could be like the little small campaign signs.
Right.
Just has the writing, and it could be generic, I guess, just for every resident. But more than anything, I mean, especially for an abandoned property, I think that would be beneficial.
Yeah, because he argues, and he did his title search, he did everything, talked to his lawyers, and everybody did everything. And on that particular piece of property, he had no way of knowing that it was already been declared a public nuisance. And he's not the easiest person to work with. So,
He's an Atkins.
Well,
I could, I'm sorry.
He opened the door.
He did.
well, and I can't remember what I was going to say exactly, but sorry, yeah, you threw me off.
I'm sorry.
But I think that just having something there, because what it was some people may not even go through that title search. You know, they may just show up at an auction or something like that and say, hey, I want this, and for some reason, if there was a lapse in communication somewhere, it would just be something else for us to put out there to, I think, help protect us and everybody else to make sure it's getting done.
Is that a welcome squatter sign though? Or do you think it'd be a deterrent?
No, I mean, well, I think if it's gotten that far, I don't know if anybody will be. So,
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Did you comment on the Ridge Road?
I don't remember that for
I got a question whether I remember things or not.
So Ridge Road?
Yeah.
All right, so we did talk about it, but we'll do it again. So the E&S complaint overall in Rich Valley, we're hopeful that we're gonna have we're finalizing the plan review right now. Hopefully that will be approved tomorrow. A plan approval letter will go out, telling the owner what he needs to do to get a permit, and I'm hopeful by the next board meeting, I'll be able to report that a permit's been issued and it is being implemented.
With all this rain we just had, was there erosion problem on the neighbor's property or?
I have not heard from the neighbor or from Phil, so hopefully some of the steps that they've taken are starting to help with that problem.
In other words.
No,
neighbors aren't getting.
so they installed silt fence. They've got stone down on the road. They've got some ditch lines developed with some check dams in them, and they've got some inlet and outlet protection. So I'm hoping that those steps have helped to at least, mitigate some of the problems. Of course, once we get the permit issued and the detention facility installed, then that should eliminate the problems. And again, hopefully in 2 weeks at the next board meeting, I'll be able to tell you that that permit's been issued.
Thank you. I'll try to remember next
I'm
time.
just giving you a hard time.
Any more old business that anybody think of? Hearing none, we'll move into new business. Moving into new business, VDOT concern.
So we invited VDOT here, and they basically said that they can make it to the 28th. So what we thought we would do is get a list of issues, concerns today that we can give to VDOT. Hopefully they'll have those answers on the 28th. Maybe hoping that that's a better way to try and get the answers that have been sitting on for a couple months. But if you want to, either we can bring them up now, or you can send on an email, however you wish to.
I think it needs to be brought out in this.
Yep,
Okay.
me too.
Who wants to start?
Well, can I ask a question before you start?
Go ahead.
This may sound like I'm trying to be funny, but I'm seriously not trying to be funny. I've sent a text, I've sent an email, and I've made a phone call. So if we are presenting this information, the only next step I know is to draw pictures. So how do we need to present it to them to get an answer?
If we have route number and issue, or a location like, around the 9,000 block of
Okay.
South
I'm
Fork
gonna
Road.
gather that while you go first.
Mr. White, go ahead.
Yeah, draw pictures, or draw pictures, take pictures, not draw pictures. But take
Well,
pictures.
okay, I mean, I'm just asking, what can we do to move this along?
I just want to know why Flint Lane is not maintained. And I'm going to continue to ask that until
Till the cows come home.
So, and I do want to make note of this, and she may have said this during a previous meeting that we had when Ms. Heath was here, that it was even mentioned that it had been maintained, but it was stated like 20 years prior, I believe. But I still have people saying they had been maintaining it up until, I think really until I started saying something to them about it. So I just feel like that needs to be addressed in some way. And I'm not going to get any satisfaction out of that until they're maintaining that road. So I just want that out there.
We need to find whoever is still in the VDOT truck and going and scraping it and make them start doing that again. Because it was not a VDOT employee.
But that does happen though.
The people steal VDOT trucks and go?
No, they don't steal trucks, but the driver knows somebody on that road, and let's say he's snow plowing somewhere right by it.
Right.
He'll drop his blade and go up, a road, up and back, 5 minutes. And everybody thinks, well, VDOT's maintaining that road, when in fact, he's helping a friend out. We got, the prime example was the Glade Mountain Road.
Still.
I myself know that VDOT was plowing up through there, but the VDOT was saying they weren't. The driver was going up through there with the truck, the blade down. If that's not plowing, I don't know what is.
Now, can I ask a question on that, and this may be something for Mr. Farthing? Do you know if it was maintained at a certain point, if the state's required to continue to do that?
I don't have an answer for you tonight.
Okay.
But in general, VDOT has a map of what their roads are, and they normally have a history guy in their office that will tell you this road has been discontinued and not maintained, but they still own it or still have the right to build a road there, or whether the road's been abandoned, like it's gone and reversed the property owners. So those things exist, as far as them going out and scraping the road, I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, and it just still goes back to this, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be continuing on with this road, but it does bother me. For the longest time, they sat here and told us they didn't even own that property, and now all of a sudden they do own the property. So, there's something going on here, and I just feel like they need to be stepping up and doing what they're supposed to. I feel they're dropping the ball on that road.
Where you wanna go, you want me to skip you for now?
You can skip me for now.
All right, you got one of my concerns already, and that's right in front of the property we just acquired there next to the Dollar General. That's the location of that. And number two, this slurry patch that they put on, or whatever you wanna call it, is absolutely miserable. Save their money and come back the next year and do it right. What they're doing is, I don't know, I've seen farm paths that are better than what that projects are doing.
Do you remember which road was?
Bear Creek.
Bear Creek?
The road up to my house off of Green Hill, Needmore Road, same way.
I was gonna bring that one up too.
Yeah.
I have the slurry one for me too. Of course,
It may be the company that did the slurry, it just, and I don't know the cost between the slurry patch and coming in or just putting the tar down and putting gravel on it, but if it's a matter of waiting 1 year and getting a decent road or having a patch now, which is gonna be just as bad, I think most taxpayers just should wait and get the better road the next year.
yeah.
That's the only ones I'm gonna comment on right now, so.
Bear Creek's about 622.
Mr. Sturgill, you're up.
Well, first of all, like I said, my niece wrecked at least 6 months ago, getting off exit 44, took out a whole row of signs. And 6 months later, their signs are still laying in the grass beside the exit ramp there.
Yep.
And the next thing that I have a huge concern is when people call the VDOT office for them to check something out, they'll just say, call your supervisor. And if that's the way their manager's gonna operate, I think that they need to be invited to all of our meetings and be put next to last on the agenda, just to be honest.
I would love for them to at least be at the first meeting every month. Maybe not the public hearing on the fourth.
And I know a lot, and listen, let me say this, there's a lot of good people who work for VDOT. There's a lot of good people who work for it. I just think it is a management level issue and quality control and things like that. I just don't think that they, I think it's just very little being accomplished, just to be honest. And when it is accomplished, it lacks a lot to be desired.
Amen. Is that it? You done?
I'm still brewing.
I
I said I was gonna stop talking.
All right, Lori.
So it's back to me. Okay, so my issues for the 15th time are the 1800 block of Riverside Road. And when the slurry was put down, they put the lines back on the road and they did not put the passing zone back. All I wanna know is were the lines accidentally put back wrong, or did the traffic division decide whether or not that it should not be a passing zone anymore?
Did the rules change?
The rules change. That's all I wanna know. I've got a citizen that is concerned because there's a lot of farm traffic through there, a lot of slow moving vehicles, and it was a nice little passing zone. The site distance hasn't changed. It literally just changed after the slurry was put down.
Was it a single line passing zone, or like where you could pass either direction?
It was I believe it's single line.
Okay, just the dots on rather than one solid and dots. Okay.
Just somebody answer the questions, all I need to know. So that's Route 660, if we're going by routes instead of road names. I'm trying to be as specific as possible. And if they need more direction, it's right where Riverside and Redstone intersect. At the old Riverside School, should be pretty easy to find.
This is what I'm talking about.
Well, then the next issue is sweeping the slurry off the road. The whole stretch of Adwolf, especially at the intersection of Adwolf and Riverside, 662 and 660 in front of the fire department to the Dollar General. There's huge piles of gravel there. I think that has since been fixed, probably because the guys on the motorcycles were about tired of almost flipping over. They probably brought their own broom and swept it up because it's been there. So, but that never was checked. And then too, and like Mr. Sturgill, I want to know why the policy was changed that if somebody calls in a complaint to VDOT, why they are having the citizen call us to just turn around and tell the same thing to somebody's voicemail or email that the citizen said. It's an extra step. And then the last thing, I can bring this up here or supervisor comment time, but I had a citizen on Laurel Valley Road call with a concern with speeding traffic. That is an unmarked secondary road, so it's automatic 55 miles an hour. So there's a lot of speeding vehicles through there, and then also a lot of increased 18-wheeler traffic. So we're not sure if they're taking a shortcut through there, but the citizen asked if there could be a traffic study and a speed study done, and if I'm not mistaken, we as a board have to make a motion for that to happen. So, if it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman.
I thought if it's not posted, that the sheriff had made all secondary roads 35.
According to VDOT's website, all unposted paved secondary roads are 55 and gravel roads are 35.
Gravel roads,
Gravel.
it has to be unpaved.
And
What's a slurry road? Is that gravel or?
I don't know.
You're probably looking at 45.
Right now, they want to sweep up the mass left over, so I'm going to go with gravel.
Okay. Yeah.
And I will tell you that, so we just had a question on a road over in Rich Valley, and we sent the email, and that was the response. If it's paved, it's 55. If it's a gravel road, and I would assume that includes the slurries, it's 35. But their response was, and I may be wrong on this part, if there has not been 3 accidents, it won't qualify for a speed study. I can check my emails to confirm that, but there's a chance even if you ask for it, they won't do it if it doesn't meet that criteria.
Well, I'd say there's been 3, because I know of one recently.
Reportable accident.
3 within when? The last 12 months, 18 months?
She just said 3.
She just said 3 reportable accidents, and that's a good point. They have to be reported. I'll check that. I may be able to find that before we leave tomorrow.
Okay. Well, with that said, may I make that motion? Okay, I'd like to make a motion for VDOT to do a traffic study and a speed study on Laurel Valley Road in Garlic.
With the goal of lowering.
With the goal of
or posting speed limit.
Posting speed limit, lowering the speed limit, and discouraging heavy trucks, whatever they call them, tractor trailer traffic, commercial traffic.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second, discussion, Mr. Williams has a comment to make?
Well, no, if you want to go ahead and vote on that, then I'll tell you, it didn't take that long to find after all.
Well, we might want that information.
All right, so this was in reference to Cliffview Road in Rich Valley. In order to post a speed limit, a speed study must be performed. To warrant a speed study, certain criteria must be met. The criteria includes 3 or more crashes in the last 3 years and a daily travel of 400 or more vehicles a day. Cliffview 631 has no reported crash data in the last 3 years and only 50 vehicles a day. Consequently, no speed study at this time.
Laurel Valley has 400 more.
So Laurel Valley would probably meet that. If it has the 3 crashes in the last 3 years, then
I'm sure it does.
So what, does that state PDOT rules?
yeah.
Our architecture tried that, so that we're like this, don't wanna compete with anybody.
Okay, any more discussion? The motion is to request a speed study and a, speed whatever.
Traffic study.
Traffic study. If there's no more discussion, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand.
Stand by for a route number.
It's unanimous.
It is 603.
Okay.
603.
Got any more?
I do not. Thank you.
Anybody following any more while we were sitting here? If not, we'll move on. Enterprise Zone Incentive Awards approvals.
So moved.
Oh, were you hiding back there?
I like to sit in the corner over there, yeah, in the comfy chair. So I'm just coming to you today with a few enterprise zone incentives for your approval. We have one economic stimulus grant for Sholey. They met the requirements for the capped amount of $50,000. And then I have a couple rebates for building permits. One for $625 for the Starbucks building, whatever the name they have on here, I can't remember, but it's for the Starbucks building. And then $5,272.75 rebate for, again, for Sholey, for their permit, for their construction. And then we have a real estate rebate for the project on a older building. That's pretty consecutive. I think they've done it pretty much every year. It's the in the same shopping center across from Food City. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
You need these in one motion? Or
One motion is fine.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
Put Kendra at the beginning and feet out at the end.
I would like that.
That did not include their performance agreement, did it?
No, this is a separate item. Yes. Yeah, so they have Sholey has a new performance agreement for this new project. It's taken them a long time to get this. I'm not really sure exactly what the holdup was at the state level, but I finally got their approved COF performance agreement, so I just need your all's approval to accept it as presented. It is for a $600,000 COF agreement, and the company promises to provide 75 new jobs and $31,080,000 in capital investments.
I would definitely make a motion to approve that.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous.
And some good news on that, they've already hired 62 of those 75 jobs. Thank you.
All righty. The important part now, the report from the county attorney.
I don't have anything to report tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Well, you sat here all this time and we thank you for having patience with us. Report from the county administrator.
You've heard enough from me, so I don't have anything else.
Well, I've heard enough from everybody else here, so we'll just move. No. Supervisor comment time. Courtney, you're first.
Oh, boy. Yes.
Wow.
It lands in that.
It only took 9 months.
I just want to thank everybody for being here. Thank it's nice to see a few people in here during our meeting. I'm still bothered about the sewer stuff. You know, we've really got to make sure that we're staying on top of things, and you know, and I know this goes back some time and everything, but it's on all of us that this is being followed up on and being followed through. So hopefully this won't be an issue again. At least I hope not. But one of the things I wanted to hit on was Saltville done a great job over at the Labor Day celebration this year. They had some big crowds from what I've seen. I was there the day of the parade, and also I think it was Labor Day that evening with Aaron Tippin. That man puts on a show. He was something else. But me and somebody else had been with me. We really enjoyed that, and as I'd stated, it was nice seeing the Smyth County EMS moving in and around the crowds. Their availability there that night, I really appreciated seeing them and spoke with one or two of them. And I also want to say, where you was reading that message from Brian, yes, I think that's amazing that, you know, we have a county administrator who will get up, regardless of when that is, and go out there and just be right in the mix with everybody else trying to help somebody. And I'm glad to see that, and I hope that's something that, you know, we all look at and recognize that every one of us can do that at any given time. And I don't think we wouldn't. I think everybody here would do that. But kudos to you for doing that, and we really appreciate that. That's all I have. And I also just want to say too, Mr. Call, just keeping his family in your thoughts and prayers moving forward. Thank you.
Mr. Sturgill. First of all, I'd like to say, welcome back, Apple Festival in Chilhowie. Next week is, it's in the 50s, I think, whatever the Apple Festival has gone on for years. And you go on YouTube video and watch the parades back when I was a little fella. 63rd. Is it 63rd? Okay. So, and for me, growing up where I did in Chilhowie, I remember all the apples, the migrant workers coming in picking apples and all the things that went with it. I remember the bus driver stopping and going out and jumping the fence and getting everybody an apple on the bus to eat so we wouldn't talk.
69.
So anyway, but please come out and support us. A lot of great booths, great parade on Saturday, and booths will be there till I think 5 o'clock on Sunday. So please come out and do that. Also, I'd like to say thanks to Dr. Carter for his leadership. He's also one that went over that night. I appreciate Mr. Rett and what he did at the flood. Dr. Carter jumped in over there, and our school division. There's 133 divisions in the state of Virginia, and our school division ranked 3rd in the state on improvement in scores from last year to this year. So we've had several invitations to go speak and show. People ask us how in the world did you do that and things like that. So his great leadership is really attest to the division and the hard work. And like I said, we're not perfect, but we try to improve every day. And that's all I have.
Ms. Deal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Widener's comments about Mr. Utt and going over to Sol. I just want to say what a joy it was to watch Mr. Utt play donkey basketball at the Rich Valley Fair. If you missed that, I highly encourage you to make it next year because it was quite entertaining. So I just wanted to comment on, you know, the fact that you're out in the public, and I think it's really important for folks to see you as a leader in this county, and even riding a donkey and playing ball. That's, you know, doing something, I don't want to say simple because it probably wasn't simple, but doing something like that just to be out there I think is super important. So thank you for that and for your leadership, and thank all the staff for all you do. And too, wanted to mention Roscoe and his family, the time that they're going through, and if there's anything he needs, please let him know to reach out to us. And Mr. Sturgill brought up the Apple Festival, but I wanted to comment, the theme this year is Love Where You Live, and I try not to get too wrapped up in what I like to call Facebook drama from keyboard warriors, but I've just seen a couple comments lately like, well, I try to live in Smyth County and I just couldn't. Like, I just don't understand that, because I think we live in a great place, and I think Mr. Wassam hit the nail on the head earlier. I love where I live, and I think there's a lot more people that do love where they live than there are those keyboard warriors on Facebook. So thank you for those who step up and take on leadership roles in this county and do things like sacrificing time with your family to serve on this board, and to make it a great place to live. So that's all I want to say.
All righty, thank you. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 4 years ago, when I was approached to run for this seat, I asked the question, why me? I'm not even originally from Smyth County. And it was pointed out that I've lived here more in my adult life than I did when I grew up in the county I grew up in. And I just recently came to the knowledge that I actually have three generation ancestors that go back to 1780s here, and did not know that. So it's ironic how one will think they're from one locality to turn out that their family hails from literally Marion. Anyway, enough family history here. Mr. Rudd, I do want to commend you on your action. I was not aware of that, but I applaud you. It does not surprise me from what I know of your character to go and roll up your sleeves and get in the middle of it and fix it. So congratulations and thank you. Put on my healthcare hat for a minute. In years, we've always heard of a neighbor, a friend, a family being diagnosed with the respiratory illness RSV. This year is the first year we have a vaccine for it, so encourage you to get it. Family members at risk, by all means follow up with it. On the COVID front, COVID is raging right now. I think one of the facilities is boiling over with it. The new COVID vaccine coming out, it's not out yet, but it is coming. Pretty much any day. It is not considered a booster. They're calling it the annual now. So the politics have kind of played out. It is now going to be an annual vaccine for COVID, just like the flu. So line up and get it, regardless of what the politics says. And one ask of the staff is I think they do a wonderful job with laying everything out. Helps me to get in, hit the cliff notes, and get on down and dive in where it's really meat and potatoes. I would ask maybe we have a small section on the back end of it or the bottom of it to kind of keep some issues or projects or just something in the front of our brain so we don't forget about some of these things, such as the nuisance properties or various other little things that we kind of need to keep our finger on the pulse, the sewer issues, so that it doesn't just get filed away and put in somewhere and we never look at it again until it's a critical moment again. I will leave it up to the staff as to what they feel is the appropriate thing, but for me, one of them jumps out at me is I don't know that we've talked about cell tower expansion in the last little bit. Now maybe I've just not paid attention and it's been there, but that would be one I would look at. Some of the derelict properties that are of merit that we need to kind of keep our finger on the pulse, and certainly the Withful program that's coming into the Ford building. Just a quick, maybe not every meeting, but just kind of give us where we at every 90 days or so. What's our expected opening and that kind of thing. But other than that, I just want to thank the board for all the hard work they do. I think we've got a collection of very diverse opinion and open-mindedness that can help steer the country forward, or the county forward. And I too am happy to have raised 3 children in this county, and 2 of them are back with me. So it is home to me, literally and figuratively. So I welcome everybody. So, and I've done.
I was going to tell you, talked to Dean Sprinkle with the community college last week. I think there are 2 programs currently going in the Ford building while they're finishing construction on some other stuff to finish, so they can get to the other parts going. I can't remember off the top of my head which 2 he's got going.
The automotive is going, and as soon as they have the welders and the machines installed, and they have to do an upgrade to the electrical, as soon as that happens, they're gonna have an open house ribbon cutting.
Thank you.
So the welding program will be there this fall?
Probably January. I don't think the electrical will be there until next month or early November.
Because that's the one question I've been asked several times is, when will the welding program be there?
They have enough power to do one welder, not the 10 that they wanted.
There's a tremendous need for welders in this county, and, good job opportunities when they complete the program, so, seems to be quite an interest.
Mr. Circle, they still have the welding
Do
and
they?
trade.
They do? Yeah, it's 2-year program.
They all get you the next day
And
after
now-
graduation.
I've got to say, I mean, I've been in and out of there a few times this year, and some of the programs that are offered down there to our kids is amazing, and there's so many benefits that they could bring to our community.
We added HVAC first year last year, and this year's 2-year program. That's a big thing. A lot of people do HVAC right now. So we added that.
All right, I guess it's my turn. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. Thank you, board members, for taking this job seriously, and as several of us had done with the public hearing tonight, or the approval of the planning commission, going out, taking the time to go out and look at the facilities. And I mean, we do more than just set up here. We actually try to study and know what we're going to be talking about when we get here. I want to thank the board for taking the time to do this and do it right, and not just sit here and be spoon-fed. I want to thank Mr. Utt for spoon-feeding us sometimes, because we need direction, and he helps with that. I give him a hard time about budget amendments, but he stays on top of it, and that's what we need. I don't think he worries about my comments, but we've got a good budget we're able to work with, and it moves the county forward. I think that's key. Everyone be safe as you head home tonight, and it's a pleasure to look out here and see people here. One of our future board members, unless Mickey Mouse beats you. Good to see you here tonight, or none of the above.
Bart said he was there sometimes.
Oh, and I hadn't seen Bart, but when I used to work the polls, we always had Mickey Mouse and none of the above. And that creates all kind of problems for the poll worker. People don't realize that when they write that in, but it creates more work for them. But once again, thank y'all for taking the time to sit here and watch this. And as Mr. Wassam says, we got our Constitution. Tickled to death to see the judge in Arizona tell the governor and that she couldn't do what she just did. And an interesting point, I'll add to Mr. Wassam, the judge that shot it down was a Biden appointee Democrat. So that tells you how far it had to be out there. So, but that's if they ran away with it, that's the first step of moving away from the Constitution. And we're unique in this. If you've never spent time in the rest of the world, you don't realize the freedoms that you have in this country. Having spent some time in Southeast Asia and seen how those individuals live, we are blessed to have been born here and be citizens of this country, and we need to make sure that we just don't let our rights go away because we don't need them right now. You lose it today, 2 years from now, well, you haven't had that. We need to defend them as they come up, so to speak. Don't let them erode away for no reason. That's my soapbox for tonight. Thank you again, and I think now we have some closed session business to do. And we thank you for your attendance. And if you want to stay, Jason, you're welcome to stay in on this.
If that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can't tell.
Well,
Basketball project bow tie.
Thank you.
Sorry. Nice try though. Okay. Not till it's in there.
Is it sideboard? Is he putting
Make it
sideboard?
bad, throw
He's
something.
putting his
Chris
hand
knows.
Oh, he's winking at me. You're winking at me.